so it's new to me as well. I don't know about Kiwi, but
I've heard it, but I haven't read it.
We'll see that one. See what happens. If I could find the right page, that would be great. Okay. Here we go. The farm next to ours is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Craig. The Craigs have 2 children, both of them boys.
Their names are Philip and William. Sometimes I go over to their farm to play with them.
I am a girl, and I am 8 years old. Philip is also 8 years old.
William is 3 years older. He is 10. What?
Oh, alright then. He is 11. Last week, something very funny happened to the Craig family.
I'm going to tell you about it as best I can. Now, the one thing that Mr. Craig and his 2 boys loved to do more than anything else was to go hunting.
Every Saturday morning, they would take their guns and go off into the woods to look for animals and birds to shoot.
Even Philip, who was only 8 years old, had a gun of his own.
I can't stand hunting. I just can't stand it. It doesn't seem right to me that men and boys should kill animals just for the fun they get out of it.
So I used to try to stop Philip and William from doing it. Every time I went over to their farm, I would do my best to talk them out of it, but they only laughed at me.
I even said something once to Mr. Craig. But he just walked on past me as if I wasn't there.
Then one Saturday morning, I saw Philip and William coming out of the woods with their father, and they were carrying a lovely young deer.
This made me so cross that I started shouting. Doesn't look too happy, that's for sure.
The boys laughed and made faces at me, and Mr. Craig told me to go home and mind my own P's and Q's.
Well, that did it. I saw red, and before I was able to stop myself, I did something I never meant to do.
I put the magic finger on them all.
Oh dear, I even put it on Mrs. Craig. Who wasn't there. I put it on the whole Craig family.
For months I had been telling myself that I would never put the magic finger upon anyone again, not after what happened to my teacher, old Mrs. Winter.
Poor old Mrs. Winter. One day we were in class and she was teaching us spelling. Stand up, she said, and spell cat.
That's an easy one, I said. K-A-T.
You're a stupid little girl, Mrs. Winter said.
I am not a stupid little girl, I cried. I am a very nice little girl.
Go and stand in the corner, Mrs. Winter said.
Then I got cross, and I saw red, and I put the magic finger on Mrs. Winter good and strong, and almost at once.
Guess what?
fast they grew. Before we had time to think, they were out to her ears.
Of course, the whole class started screaming with laughter, and then Mrs. Winter said,
"Will you be so kind as to tell me what you find so madly funny, all of you?"
And when she turned around to write something on the blackboard, we saw that she had grown a tail as well.
It was a huge bushy tail.
I cannot begin to tell you what happened after that, but if any of you are wondering whether Mrs. Winter is quite alright again, now the answer is no.
And she'll never be. The magic finger is something I've been able to do all my life.
I can't tell you just how I do it, because I don't even know myself.
But it always happens when I get cross, when I see red.
Then I get very, very hot all over. Then the tip of the forefinger of my right hand begins to tingle most terribly.
And suddenly a sort of flash comes out of me. A quick flash, like something electric.
It jumps out and touches the person who has made me cross.
And after that, the magic finger is upon him or her, and the things begin to happen.
Well, the magic finger was now upon the whole of the Craig family, and there was no taking it off again.
I ran home and waited for things to happen.
They happened fast.
I shall now tell you what those things were.
I get the whole story from Philip and William the next morning after it was all over.
In the afternoon of the very same day that I put the magic finger on the Craig family, Mr. Craig and Philip and William went out hunting once again.
This time, they were going after wild ducks, so they headed towards the lake.
In the first hour they got 10 birds. In the next hour they got another 6.
What a day, cried Mr. Craig. This is the best yet. He was beside himself with joy.
Just then 4 more wild ducks flew over their heads. They were flying very low. They were easy to hit. Bang, 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 went the guns. The ducks flew on. We missed, said Mr. Craig. That's funny.
Then, to everyone's surprise, the 4 ducks turned around
Greg's wings instead. But, cried Mrs. Gregg, going purple in the face.
My dear man, what's happened to you? What's happened to both of us, you mean? Shouted Mr. Gregg.
It was Mrs. Gregg's turn now to jump out of bed. She ran to look at herself in the glass, but she was not tall enough to see into it.
She was even smaller than Mr. Gregg, and she too had got wings instead of arms. Oh, sobbed Mrs. Gregg. This is witch's work, cried Mr. Gregg, and both of them started running around the room, flapping their wings.
A minute later, Philip and William burst in. The same thing happened to them. They had wings and no arms, and they were really tiny. They were about as big as robins. Mama, 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 chirped Philip.
Look, Mama, we can fly. And they flew up into the air. Come down at once, said Mrs. Gregg. You're much too high.
But before she could say another word, Philip and William had flown right out the window.
Mr. and Mrs. Gregg ran to the window and looked out. The two tiny boys were now high up in the sky.
And Mrs. Gregg said to Mr. Gregg, "Do you think we could do that, my dear?"
I don't see why not, Mr. Gregg said. Come on, let's try.
Mr. Gregg began to flap his wings hard, and all at once up he went.
Then Mrs. Gregg did the same. Help, she cried as she started going up. Save me.
Come on, said Mr. Gregg, don't be afraid.
So out the window they flew, far up into the sky, and it did not take them long to catch up with Philip and William.
Soon the whole family was flying around and around together. Oh, isn't it lovely, cried William. I've always wanted to know what it feels like to be a bird.
Your wings are not getting tired, are they, dear? Mr. Gregg asked Mrs. Gregg. Not at all, Mrs. Gregg said. I could go on forever. Hey, look down there, said Philip. Somebody is walking in our garden.
Well, everyone, we are going to leave it here for tonight. And there's obviously still a little bit more of the story to go. So maybe sometime in the future we will do this again and finish the story.